Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kersner.
Hello and welcome to episode 85 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now. And I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this beautiful, perfect present moment. The title and topic of today's podcast is Experiencing Social Anxiety in the Present Moment. And I chose this topic because who hasn't experienced social anxiety at some point? I mean, I wouldn't say 100% of the people listening, experience it often, but I think we've all experienced different shades of it at different times of our lives. And some people are able to overcome it, and a lot of people are controlled by it. And if we're being present, we can see exactly what's going on. But the challenge is with social anxiety, it's so overwhelming. It's so all-encompassing. That it really creates chaos within us and the ego thrives in those moments. In the present moment, if we're seeing something like social anxiety, we could see the true power of an unguarded ego and what it does and what it makes us think and how it shifts our perceptions, our projections onto how we think other people are perceiving us. So, what is social anxiety? And especially, what does presence have to do with social anxiety? As the term states, social anxiety is feeling anxiety in social situations. Being human beings means that we are in social situations at some point in our lives during our day, whenever. The social interactions are built within this reality, built within this society. To get things done, we have to work with other people. And that is very challenging for some of us. I will tell you personally that there's been periods in my life that I've experienced social anxiety, and I've worked with many patients that experience social anxiety. And I wanted to take some time to talk about social anxiety in reference to presence or it happening in the present moment and what could be done to quiet it and give a little bit of peace to those of us who wish to have or be in social situations and not be overcome by social anxiety. I talk a lot about ego work and the loud voice in your head. And that voice in your head, your ego, will look for opportunities to show itself, to exert its influence over us, to make us think things that are not necessarily true and not true 99% of the time. And what better time for an ego to show up than we're in a social situation? Because our nervous systems get engaged. We enter into a state of fight or flight. When many of us are in social situations, especially people who are introverted, people who have had any trauma in their lifetime, being in a social situation can be very challenging. And it is a time and in moments, present moments, where an ego will flood us with all these different projections and perceptions, making us think things that other people are thinking that aren't so. And it's interesting because you get a lot of people together and then this energy starts to build, this anxious energy. And it becomes very intoxicating and very overwhelming. And there's a reason why a substance like alcohol is used for many people when they enter into social situations, because it temporarily makes people feel more relaxed. Not just alcohol. I mean, there are a lot of different substances that people use to combat social anxiety. It is effective in the short term, but it really doesn't get at the root of why you're feeling anxious in social situations and what that social anxiety is making you do. Because using substances to overcome something like that is antithetical to really understanding why you're feeling anxiety in the first place, what that is, what that's trying to tell you. Because the ego wants you to believe that you're unsafe in that situation, and more times than not, you're not unsafe. You're fine. There's really nothing wrong. But you get triggered into that fight or flight state, the sympathetic nervous system, and that's where the ego thrives. And it really creates chaos with all the thoughts and emotions, the feelings of all the people around you, and makes you think that they're looking at you, they're thinking these things. It becomes debilitating and very undesirable. And oftentimes people will have social anxiety even before they enter into the social situation itself. And it becomes so overwhelming that they decide that they don't even want to go out. They don't even want to entertain the idea of being around other people because it's just too heavy. It's just too much to deal with. Being present is extremely important when these things come up because it allows us to see how powerful the ego is in regards to social situations. There are a variety of presence tools that would be helpful for a person to use before they enter into a social situation, or to allow them to stay in a state of presence to watch their ego overwhelm them when they enter into a situation that they have to be social. The ego runs amok. It becomes a unmitigated disaster of different thoughts, which trigger feelings, which trigger the nervous system, which make you want to run away. And it happens to a lot of people. I've experienced it. I've lived it. I've seen it. I've treated it. And it's not that I could sit here and say I've overcome it, because I think that there's a part of us, especially those of us who are slightly introverted or those of us who are fully introverted, who feel very uncomfortable in social situations. But it's important that we're present and we understand why. What is it about? What's triggering us? And what can we do about it? Because if you don't want to be in social situations, that's one thing. But if you really do want to be social and you want to be able to be around other people, then you want to understand what's going on. What's the programming going on? Where is your ego at? What is it making you think? Why are you so scared about being in a social situation? Because with enough work done within yourself, you should be able to be in a social situation and get out of your head. You shouldn't have to rely on alcohol or drugs or medications to be social. It's the ego that's creating all of the challenges to entering into social situations, making you think things and feel things that aren't true at all. It's just your imagination. And it's terrible, and it causes a lot of unnecessary and unpurposeful suffering for people who want to be social, want to be around other people, but can't be because their egos are in complete control of them and want to keep them locked into this cycle of fear. And fear is a control mechanism. So the ego uses that fear against you to keep you locked into that cycle of thoughts and emotions and a lack of presence. Because does it really matter at the end of the day what another person thinks of you? It doesn't, and it shouldn't. It matters more what you think of yourself. But being present allows you to see that more clearly and understand why you would feel the way you feel about yourself. At the end of the day, you are who you are. And you want to work towards understanding yourself better so that you can get into a better state of acceptance for yourself, to love oneself, not to seek outward acceptance, inward acceptance. And if you can get to a place where you truly love yourself and truly accept yourself, that is the foundation that you can use to enter into social situations so you don't disempower yourself by allowing your ego to care more about what other people think about you. I want to share something with you that I've noticed and taken note of over the duration of my career, sitting in front of thousands of egos, is that most people don't really like themselves. Some people hate themselves. And it's the ego that's creating that. So the question that I have for you is why do you care about what someone else thinks of you when they don't even really like themselves? And that's a major revelation and realization that needs time, that needs time to sink in. Why do you care about what someone else thinks about you when oftentimes those people don't even really like themselves? And if you can grasp that concept, you could take the power back from your ego and from what your perception and projections are of what other people think about you, and understand that it doesn't make a difference at all. If you can do your ego work and see things for what they are, you can navigate this life free of fear. That's why being present, using your presence tools, having a presence practice, really understanding who you are and seeing things with clarity is so helpful to engage in, subsequently overcome something like social anxiety that can be so crippling and debilitating for those who want to be social but can't be because they can't stop thinking and worrying because they're overcome by fear. But the fear is unfounded, but yet it feels so visceral, it feels so real. And I'm not here to trivialize your feelings. I'm here to explain to you that it's your ego, that loud voice in your head that's making you think things that aren't true. And it's showing up in moments where you're most vulnerable, when you're worried about what other people are thinking. You just have to zoom out enough to see the insidious nature of the ego and the work that exists for you to learn how to calm yourself, to still yourself, and to understand that there are going to be times where you're going to feel agitated and anxious, but that will pass. You don't have to necessarily exit the situation. Yeah, that's your choice. If you don't want to be there, don't be there. But don't allow your ego to create stories about why you shouldn't be there. Still yourself, use your tools, see things clearly, and then make your decision. Don't make decisions based on fear and anxiousness, because that only will strengthen your ego's ability to control you. An unguarded, empowered ego is a disaster. It's chaos. And being present allows you to see this for what it is. It's negative motivators making you enter into a state of fight or flight, so that you have an overly engaged nervous system that's creating the discomfort and the fear and the pain of you being in a social situation. I really don't want to go deeper into that because I feel like sharing all this information that I just have is enough to at least get you to see things a little bit differently. Because I'm not overly concerned about the science behind social anxiety, about what chemicals or hormones or whatever's being released in those moments to trigger you. I'm more focused on what's going on in your head when this is happening. And what is it that you want to do about it? How present are you being in a social situation? Where are the fears coming from? What does it matter what someone else thinks? It's more important what you think of yourself. But you have to remember and realize that the societal programming that you've been given is to value other people's opinions over your own. That is a fallacy. It matters more what you think of yourself, not in an ego way, but to love oneself, to know oneself, to trust oneself. That's the foundation that you're looking for, so that you can walk with strength and power and an understanding of who you are and what it is that you want, so that you don't unconsciously give your power away to other people and their perceptions. And that has a lot to do with the 4 agreements. So I would suggest that you listen to my podcast on the 4 agreements, but you also read the book, because I think that'll help with understanding of the foundation that you could build so that you can work on any social anxiety that you might experience in any given present moment or present second. I fully understand the challenges that exist with social anxiety, and I know it because I've lived it and I've treated it. I've listened to many patients that live with it, and I wanted to take my present moments to share these insights with you because I think that they're helpful and slightly different than maybe the perceptions that existed previously. So again, it is my pleasure and my honor to share these present moments with you, and I wish you nothing but peace.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.